Hi everybody, Mark Adams here. Welcome. This is a celebration of our 25th anniversary here at the school. And over the years, we've had somewhere in the neighborhood of about 350 instructors teach here. And those people are among the absolute best at what they do. And we're honored this week to have Patrick Moore here from Canada. And he's teaching a class called Stereotomy. Patrick, what exactly is stereotomy?
So stereotomy would be looking at a three-dimensional object or shape. In this case, we use pieces of wood, and we draw them out two-dimensionally on a piece of paper. So this piece of paper, two-dimensional object, is actually three-dimension, and we look at how do we solve for real lengths and angles of one piece intersecting another. And the beauty of it is there's no math. Everything is a visual representation of the real thing.
So now, for example, if you go back to the 13th century, where they would do all these big stone columns and stone staircases and arches on top of buildings, I've always wondered how would they take the measurements from that? And you're saying that all comes from stereotomy.
That's exactly what that is, yeah, absolutely. So they would generally draw it out on a full scale if they had the room, and then take small components of that big drawing to gain a template that then they would use to carve the stone.
Oh, wow. And so they could do that, carving of the stone on the ground, and know that they're going to take it up in space and it's going to be exactly the right fit.
Absolutely, and that's the idea.
And why don't we do more of that today?
I don't know, to be honest. I think it might just be the knowledge never came over.
Well, let's just quickly talk about the knowledge.
Sure.
When you and I first met, you were the only person that I'd ever even heard mention this word stereotomy. And so as I started to explore it further and realized that you're kind of the only guy in North America that does it, what kind of qualifications, where did you go to learn how to do that?
So I learned it living in France for several years. And in part of their system that I was there for, it's just part of their education. It's just part of their diplomas and their accreditation to work as a carpenter.
And how many years did you do that?
So it took me 7 years.
7 years. Is that the typical apprenticeship program?
So the typical average length for them is 10 years.
And you did 7. You also mentioned something last year that I thought was interesting. You talked about a journeymanship, right, which is where you would journey to go to places to learn different parts of that trade. So where else did you go other than France?
So, well, it all stayed in France.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, so it's what they call in Tour de France, not the bike ride. And you would travel, you would skip or travel from one town to the other twice a year. And I started just outside of the town of Besançon in this little town called Salé-les-Bains.
Mm-hmm. And what year would that have been?
That I went in 2009.
2009. And so you took your time there, you're here now. Now, I know that you live in Canada, and what do you currently do there for work?
So I currently work as a joiner, that is windows, doors, trim, and I also teach as much as possible.
And so you mentioned that you were working at the state capitol.
The new Senate.
The new
Yes,
Senate.
That's right.
And tell me a little bit about that project, because that sounds like it's a pretty big endeavor.
Yeah, it's a huge endeavor, actually. It's a massive endeavor. So it used to be an old train station that is being converted into the new Senate. So the idea is that the Parliament buildings are being moved temporarily into this new position in other areas as well, while they undergo massive amounts of restoration work. And they're predicting billions and billions of dollars are going to be poured into the local economy.
How many years will this take?
So this current project our end of it started in 2015, but it started earlier from that. Our detailing and making drawings, and then drafting up contracts and all those things.
When was this building originally built?
It started in 1910 and it finished in around 1912.
And so one last thing before we start to wrap it up. What is your webpage so people can go and find out a little bit more about you and what you do?
Sure. So it's www.historicalcarpentry.com.
And some things that I'd like for you to keep in mind is to check back with us often, because we're going to learn a lot more about interesting people like Patrick as our year progresses. Thank you very much.